There's a secret old as time, tucked in the hearts of the women who knew how to hold power without raising their voices. They didn't scream for attention. They didn't beg to be loved. They didn't chase, they drew in, like the moon pulling tides, like honey attracting bees. They moved different. They were different. A woman who values herself doesn't need to beg for attention. She commands it in silence. You ever walk into a room and feel the energy shift? Not because someone was loud, not because they were showing off, but because they were just there. Quiet, confident, rooted like a tree that's seen storms and still stands tall. That's what real power looks like. It's not in screaming to be noticed, it's not in bending over backwards to prove your worth. It's in knowing deep in your soul that you are worthy, that you don't have to convince anybody of your value because your presence already says it all. When a woman understands this, when she carries herself with that silent grace, something changes in how people respond to her. Men especially, they sense it. They sense when a woman doesn't need their attention to feel complete, and that ironically is what draws them closer. The less you need to be seen, the more seen you become. Because begging, chasing, over-explaining, that's desperation in disguise, and desperation never felt attractive. It smells of insecurity, of fear, of lack. But a woman who knows her worth, she walks with stillness in her bones. She listens more than she speaks. She doesn't throw herself at anyone, not because she's arrogant, but because she's selective. Because her time is sacred. Her energy is gold, and if someone doesn't see it, that's their loss, not her burden. She doesn't force herself into spaces where she's only tolerated. She doesn't send double texts hoping for crumbs of affection. She doesn't compete for a man's focus like it's a prize at a cheap raffle. Nah. She sits back and lets alignment do the work. If someone's meant for her, they'll feel that pull. They'll rise to meet her. Because her energy doesn't chase, it attracts. Don't give too much, too soon. Mystery keeps you unforgettable. There's a magic in being a little unknown, a little unreachable. Not because you're hiding, not because you're playing games, but because you understand the value of unfolding slowly, like a book that reveals its plot over time, not all at once. Like a rose that blooms petal by petal, never in a rush. Because what's revealed too quickly often loses its wonder. What's handed over too easily doesn't get held with care. You see, the problem is too many women think that love is something they have to earn by over-giving, by sharing their life story on the first date, by being emotionally available before trust is built, by doing the absolute most to prove they are different. But being unforgettable has nothing to do with how much you give, and everything to do with how you give. When you give all of yourself too fast, it becomes too familiar, too easy to take for granted. Mystery isn't about being distant or cold, it's about pacing. It's about having layers, depths, that don't reveal themselves until they're earned. It's about letting someone wonder, letting them think about you when the conversation ends, letting them sit with the thought of who you are when you're not around. Because curiosity keeps people coming back, and the moment you stop being curious, you start being predictable. You don't owe anyone full access to your soul just because they showed up. You don't have to hand over your past, your dreams, your wounds, your love just because he seems interested. Let him meet you layer by layer, moment by moment. Let him earn the right to know the real you. Not the highlight reel, not the curated version, but the full you. Because when a man has to work to understand you, to reach your heart, to gain your trust, he'll value what he gets. He won't take it lightly, he won't forget you when the conversation fades. Because the truth is, when you leave a little to the imagination, when you're not always available, when you don't spill every detail like a broken faucet, you linger. You stay on his mind in the quiet hours. You become a question, not an answer. And questions are powerful. They pull people in. They keep people wondering, reaching, wanting more. Men are drawn to women who are grounded and calm, not desperate or overly eager. There's something undeniably magnetic about a woman who carries peace in her spirit. Not chaos, not clinginess, just peace. She is not frantically trying to make something happen, not refreshing her phone every 5 minutes waiting for a message, not shifting her whole day around just because a man decided to show up. She moves with grace. She has rhythm. Her life has meaning beyond romance. And that's what makes her irresistible. Desperation is loud. It screams, notice me, choose me, validate me. But calm whispers, I already choose myself. And that whisper speaks volumes. Because men, whether they admit it or not, are sensitive to energy. They feel when a woman is centered in herself, when she doesn't need them to feel whole, when she's rooted in something deeper than just attention. That energy doesn't overwhelm it, it invites. When a woman is grounded, she doesn't try to control everything. She doesn't rush love. She doesn't panic over a late reply or spiral over a cancelled plan. She understands that what's meant for her won't require her to abandon her dignity to keep it. Her vibe says, I'm not afraid to walk away if it costs me my peace. And that confidence wrapped in calmness is a whole different level of beauty. Eagerness, when it's not matched with self-respect, can start to feel like pressure. It pushes instead of flows. It feels like a demand rather than a connection. And when a man senses that pressure, he pulls away, not always because he's playing games, but because the energy feels off. Nobody wants to feel smothered before they've had a chance to breathe. But a woman who isn't out here trying to force affection, who's not performing for approval, she creates space. Space for the man to show up, space for love to grow naturally. She holds herself steady. She listens more than she reacts. She knows that her worth isn't measured by how fast a man falls, but by how deeply he respects her presence. That calmness, it's not laziness, it's not disinterest, it's strength, it's maturity, it's knowing that emotional chaos isn't love, that begging, proving, overgiving, that's not love either. True connection happens in the stillness, in the pauses, in the quiet confidence of someone who knows they are already enough, with or without the chase. Let him work for your time and energy. What's earned is valued. The truth is, people don't treasure what they didn't have to fight for. It's just how we're wired. What comes too easy feels disposable. What takes effort, what takes consistency, what takes real intention, that's what stays on the mind. And you are not just something to pass the time, you are not a quick scroll, a late night option, or a maybe on his list of priorities. You are a whole experience, a presence, a force. And if he wants access to that, he should have to earn it, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're hard to get. For the wrong ones. Your time is precious, your energy is sacred. You've poured too much into becoming the woman you are now to just hand yourself over to anyone who blinks in your direction. A man should feel honored to stand in your space. He should feel like, damn, I really have to bring my best self to even be in her orbit. That's not arrogance. That's standard. When you give too freely, when you show up every time he calls without hesitation, when you rearrange your life to fit into his, it stops being special. It becomes routine. It loses that spark. But when you hold your power, when you move with boundaries, when you make it clear that your presence is something to be earned, not taken, you shift everything. Now he's paying attention. Now he's wondering how to be better. Now he's trying. And don't get it twisted. Real men want to work for it. The ones who are ready for something real, they don't shy away from effort, they lean into it. Because they know that anything truly worth having doesn't come served on a silver platter. It comes through showing up, through consistency, through proving, not just saying. Let him plan, let him show up, let him reach out first. Let him make space in his world for you, instead of always trying to squeeze yourself into his. Let him feel that he has to deserve you, not that you're just waiting around to be chosen. Because when a man has to earn your time, when he has to invest real energy, when he has to rise to meet your level, he won't just chase you, he'll respect you. And respect is what makes love last longer than the butterflies. Being unavailable isn't rude, it's powerful. You've got a life, live it. Somewhere along the way, women were taught that availability equals value. That the more accessible you are, the more desirable you become. That if you always pick up on the first ring, always say yes, always drop what you're doing to accommodate someone else's plans, then you're proving your worth. But that's a lie. Because the truth is, constant availability doesn't scream value, it whispers desperation. You don't need to be always on call to be loved. You don't need to answer every message instantly. You don't need to cancel your plans just because someone suddenly remembered you exist. Being unavailable isn't a strategy, it's just a reflection of a life that's already full. And a woman with a full life, that's irresistible. Because when you're living with purpose, when you've got your own goals, your own friends, your own rituals, your own peace, you send a message without saying a word. I don't revolve around anyone but me. That doesn't mean you're cold, that doesn't mean you're selfish. It just means you know your time isn't free. It costs energy, it costs presence, and not everyone deserves it. When you're always there, always responding, always ready to show up, you start to disappear into the background. But when you protect your time, when you're intentional with your space, when you allow yourself to be busy living, that's when people start to notice your absence. Let them miss you. Let them wonder what you're doing, where you're at, why you haven't replied yet. Let them feel the value of your presence through the sting of your absence. Because attention that's freely given is rarely respected. But attention that must be earned, that's where the game changes. You're not being mean by not being constantly available. You're being real. You've got things to do. You've got passions to chase. You've got a schedule. You're building something. And that's what makes a man sit up and realize, she's not sitting around waiting for me, she's already in motion, I have to catch up. A woman who's unavailable isn't playing hard to get. She's just getting things done. She's not ignoring anyone. She's just not making someone else's inconsistency the center of her day. She's not punishing with silence. She's just focused. And that focus, that ability to prioritize yourself, that's not rude, that's not cold, that's what makes you unforgettable. Don't over-communicate or explain yourself to death, let your vibe speak louder. There's a quiet strength in a woman who doesn't need to constantly justify her choices. A woman who moves without asking for permission, without apologizing for her standards, without explaining herself to people who were never really listening in the first place. She doesn't write essays to defend her boundaries. She doesn't beg to be understood. She simply is confident, steady, intentional, See, there is a difference between communication and over-communication. Healthy connection, yeah, that needs openness, that needs truth. But when you're constantly explaining your silence, your decisions, your feelings, your worth, you start to chip away at your own power. You start to perform instead of exist. And that's where the imbalance begins. You don't owe a paragraph every time you say no. You don't have to send long texts explaining why you were busy, why you didn't reply right away, why you didn't jump when he reached out. A woman who values herself knows this. Not everything needs a detailed breakdown. Sometimes the answer is in her tone. Sometimes it's in her silence. Sometimes it's in the way she simply moves on. Because when your vibe is solid, when your energy is rooted, it speaks louder than any explanation ever could. A man tuned into your frequency doesn't need a play-by-play of your every thought, he just feels it. Feels your calm, your confidence, your mystery. And the ones who don't feel it, the ones who demand over-explanations for everything, they were never really trying to connect. They were trying to control. The woman who over-explains is often trying to manage someone else's emotions, trying to soften the blow of her truth, trying to make herself more digestible. But baby, you weren't born to be watered down. You weren't meant to shrink so someone else can feel big. You're allowed to say no and walk away. You're allowed to move on without a monologue. You're allowed to protect your peace without explaining why. Let your energy speak. Let your absence teach. Let your presence be felt, not just heard. Because the ones who truly see you won't need the extra words. They'll feel you in the way you carry yourself, in the decisions you make, in the way you refuse to be reduced. You don't need to prove yourself with paragraphs. Your vibe is the message. Let it do the talking. Your peace is your power. Protect it. He'll chase you when he feels he has to deserve it. There is nothing more untouchable, more radiant, more captivating than a woman who is deeply rooted in her peace. A woman who no longer runs toward chaos dressed up as love. A woman who doesn't flinch when someone pulls away, who doesn't spiral when the attention shifts, who doesn't trade her serenity for someone else's uncertainty, because she knows, she finally knows that peace is her foundation, and anyone who comes into her life must honor it, not disturb it. You see, when you're grounded in peace, you move differently. You don't chase people, you watch who shows up. You don't beg for effort. You recognize when it's missing. You don't make excuses for bad behavior, you walk away. Without drama, without a scene, without turning it into a performance. Because you've been through enough. You've healed enough. And now you're not negotiating your joy. Men sense that. Real men respect that. When you protect your peace, you send a loud message without raising your voice. I've built something beautiful inside myself, and you don't get to walk in here dirty. You don't allow mixed signals to shake you. You don't lower your standards for someone just because you feel lonely for a moment. You don't entertain boys who bring storms into your calm. And the wild part is when you do that, when you truly hold the line, when you live your life with your heart full and your boundaries strong, he comes running. Because he realizes you're not just another option. You're not someone he can call at 2 a.m. when his ego needs a boost. You're the kind of woman a man has to rise for, has to grow for, has to deserve. And it's not about being unreachable, it's about being untouchable by anything that threatens your peace. You've cried the tears, you've picked up the pieces, you've done the work, and now you don't trade your healing just to feel wanted. You don't invite confusion back into your space just because you missed the attention. You don't hand over your light to someone who can't hold it. When a woman makes peace her priority, everything shifts. Her glow changes. Her energy softens yet strengthens. She is not cold, she is calm. She is not detached, she is divine. She is not avoiding love, she is making room for real love, the kind that doesn't come to destroy but to build. And any man who wants to be part of that story, he better come correct. He better come with effort, intention, and truth. Because now she knows she is the prize, and her peace, that's her crown. So let him chase. Let him rise to meet you. Let him earn the right to be part of your world. Because when you stand firm in your peace, your worth, and your boundaries, you make it clear that you are not just an option. You are a rare, precious treasure. And the ones who are truly meant for you will never hesitate to do the work, to prove their worth, and to earn your trust. Because when you protect your peace, you protect your power. And that, my dear, is what makes you unforgettable.